As more states start to ease restrictions and businesses begin to open up, employees might find themselves in some tricky situations when it comes to being safe on the job. Already, a number of lawsuits have been filed against companies and hospitals for allegedly failing to provide employees with proper health protections. While judges have dismissed some of these lawsuits, it raises questions over what rights workers have during these uncertain times. So to get some answers, we're going to bring in CBSN legal contributor Keir Dougall. Keir, thank you so much for joining us. So the thing about the reopenings that we're seeing around the country is that, different states have different guidelines, and some governors have really left it up to business owners to determine whether or not they're going to allow eating inside their restaurant or other things like that. If you're an employee and you're called back to work, but you don't think the guidelines are safe enough, do you have any recourse?
Good morning. Yes, you do. And I guess I'd like to start with some practical stuff first, because I think an ounce of prevention is, worth a pound of cure, as the saying goes. If you feel as an employee unsure about the safety of your workplace, I think the first place to go is to talk to your employer. Your employer has obligations with respect to providing a safe workplace, but talk to your employer first and see if you can work it out and get comfortable. If you're in a union, talk to your shop steward or talk to your union leadership. If there's if these conversations are breaking down, you can reach out. If there's a workers' rights advocacy group in your community or in your state, if they're available, you can reach out to them. You can also, sort of escalating these concerns, you can also take them to your state and local labor agency and to the federal agency, OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I leave this one at the bottom of the list because who wants to talk to a lawyer? But if things, are really bad, you can try to find a lawyer in your community. Make sure you find one who is familiar with your state's labor and employment laws. But that is the sort of escalating things that you can do. Ultimately, of course, you can refuse to work, but that's tricky, and that should really be based on more than just a feeling about the safety of your workplace.
So, Keir, what are the federal and I guess I'll ask you federal. What are the federal guidelines and the responsibilities for employers to provide a safe working environment? It's not enough for a company CEO or the head of a business to say everybody should come back to work, and if you don't, then you're fired or you will lose your unemployment benefits. I mean, they have responsibilities too to ensure a safe working environment. So, what are some of those?
That's exactly right, Vlad, and a great question. So the laws for the occupational and safety and health laws at the federal level require that the workplace be free from recognized hazards that are causing or are likely to cause death or serious bodily injury. And an employer should follow the CDC guidelines, the OSHA guidelines, the Equal Employment Opportunity Guidelines on to avoid discrimination under these circumstances in COVID, and of course your state and local obligations with respect to workplace safety. There is a substantial body of law that governs and provides standards for employers which they have to follow.
So I'm sort of thinking about things a little bit from an employer point of view. A lot of these employers that got this small business money, a portion of it has to go to paying salaries, or else they have to give that money back. And so you may find, businesses saying, look, I have to open and I have to employ someone. If it's not going to be you, then it has to be someone else, or else I'm in jeopardy with this money. I guess I'm wondering, if an employee feels pressured, do they run the risk, if they refuse to come back, to sort of having a bad mark on their work record or their employment record? I mean, could there be sort of further fallout down the road?
Well, I think the immediate fallout for someone who is concerned about their workplace, if they've been involuntarily separated from their work, or if they've been fired or furloughed, right? So the issue is unemployment insurance. And the general rule there is that if you quit, right, then you don't get your unemployment insurance. If you come back, of course, then you want to have a safe workplace. I think the issue that you want to focus on, if you're worried about your employer not having provided you with a safe workplace, is you want to talk to them about it. You want to put them on notice of specifically what it is that you think, or if you're working with your union or a workers' rights advocacy group or a lawyer, you want to put them on specific notice of what they need to fix. And then if sort of the legal standard is to be objectively reasonable about that, it can't just be based on your own fear. But if you've put your employer on notice, there's a real problem and they're not fixing it, well, then you have a right to not go back to work. Your employer can't, not legally anyways, can't fire you because of that. And so you have protection in that way. The problem is that the agency that enforces this is OSHA itself, and it is not typically quick to respond unless, particularly under these circumstances, you're dealing in a very high-risk environment. Right now, because of all of the workplace dislocation, they are focused only on the very highest risk areas. So the one thing that I'm keeping a close eye on is a lawsuit in Missouri for nuisance, where without relying on OSHA to enforce their rights, employees have sued for public nuisance, effectively for a demand that the employer improve their workplace.
Yeah, that's certainly something we'll keep an eye out on, Keir. Clearly, it's tough for employers, for sure, but it's also tough for employees. In the case, for example, of Iowa, where you had a team of public health experts warn the governor that relaxing or forcing employees to return to work could result in what they say is, quote, a catastrophic loss of life. So a lot of things for governors, for business owners, and for employees to consider. Keir, thank you so much for breaking it down for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.